Hey guys, it's Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing, and I'm here with my July weekly wrap-up. I had a pretty good reading week this week. I ended up reading 5 books, so I was pretty happy with that. The first book that I read was The Colour of Our Sky by Amita Trasi. I got this as an ARC copy from NetGalley, so big thank you to, I think it's Bloomhill Books, for that. And I did really enjoy this book. The best way I can describe this book is that it's basically like a female version of The Kite Runner that's set in India. So it's basically about these two girls and their friendship. There's Tara and Mukta. And Mukta comes from this kind of small Indian village that's very deep in tradition. And she's the daughter of a temple prostitute. And the whole kind of tradition is that Mukta will become a temple prostitute as well. And in this tradition, girls as young as 8 or 9 can become prostitutes and, be raped by men who are, old enough to be their fathers or their grandfathers. So it's a really sad tradition. And the whole thing is about how Mukta kind of escapes that life and comes to Tara and her family, and they have this really great friendship. And it's told from 2 different points of view. You have Tara's point of view and Mukta's point of view. And Tara is like a good few years ahead, and she's telling the story, and she's looking for Mukta because Mukta disappeared when they were quite young, and she's felt really guilty over it. And you kind of come to realise why Tara feels guilt over Mukta's disappearance and how she seems to think that she's involved in it. And then you also hear about what happened to Mukta in her past and what happened to her after she disappeared from Tara's life, and kind of how she never forgot Tara and Tara never forgot Mukta, and it's all about how you really root for them to find each other again. It is kind of hard-hitting. It's not like a very easy read because, it is to do with topics such as prostitution, human trafficking, rape, sexual assault, being trapped, not being able to escape somewhere. It's quite dark at times, but then there's also some great memories between Tara and Mukta that really kind of brighten the story up. So it was a really nice read. I did like it. I think if you were fans of The Kite Runner, you would definitely like this book. And as well, there's a lot of cultural bits and bobs in it about India that I never knew before. At times the language was almost a little bit forced, I think. Now I got an ARC copy, so it could be different in the finished book, but sometimes I felt that the language, it could have been a bit looser. Sometimes the conversation is like, well, people probably wouldn't phrase a sentence like that. They wouldn't phrase it so completely. They'd use, shorter language. So I don't know if that's changed or not, or whether maybe it's kind of a little bit of a language barrier or not. But overall, this book was really good, and I gave it 4 stars. If I'm moving a bit as well, it's because my dog is sitting on my lap, so I'm petting him on his head. So if you see my shoulders moving, that's what I'm doing. He's having a nap here. And then the second book that I read, which was kind of the very start of July, as I finished up The Colour of Our Sky kind of the last day of June, really. So I read Married with Zombies by Petersen. And guys, what a way to start off the month. This was such a good book. I had such fun reading this book. It's been on my TBR for ages, and I finally got around to reading it, and I can't believe I haven't read it sooner. It's basically about the zombie apocalypse, but it centres around these 2 characters, David and Sarah, and they're a married couple, but they're on the brink of a divorce, and they're getting therapy. They're getting like relationship couples therapy to try and help their marriage, but it's pretty clear that nothing's helping, and they're definitely on the road to a divorce. And it ends up they go for their session, and they see their therapist as a zombie eating the couple that was in the appointment before them. So they immediately kind of become these crazy zombie killers. But it's really funny, and their relationship problems don't just go away because there's a zombie apocalypse. It comes up in like different ways, and they kind of bicker and argue about stupid little things even though there's a zombie apocalypse going on. And then as well, if you saw my top 5 Wednesday last week, I talked about the chapter headings, which kind of have different funny little advice for couples trying to stay together, but it's all zombie related advice. So that was really fun as well. And then For some reason, whenever I pictured Sarah and David, I kept picturing Cameron Diaz and Ashton Kutcher from the movie What Happens in Vegas, because I think there's a scene in that movie where they're racing each other towards their therapist's office, and I kept imagining that scene, but I kept throwing zombies into that scene. And then I was like, okay, well, they're my Sarah and David. So Sarah and David for me were Cameron Diaz and Ashton Kutcher. I just thought they fit it really well. So yeah, a really, really funny book. Just such a pleasure to read. I really can't wait to read the next one. I've the next book ordered, so I can't wait to get it. It's going to be so good. So I would definitely say if you're into zombie fiction, read that, because not only is it a good zombie book, there's also a bit of light-hearted humour in it as well. And another thing is that I also find that in a lot of zombie books you tend to get someone on their own for a while, and then gradually maybe more people come in and they kind of create this kind of survivors group, where with Sarah and David, they've already known each other for such a long time, and deep down they do love each other, so they kind of know what each other are thinking, and they know how they're both going to act when they have a surprise zombie attack or whatever like that. They already trust each other, so there's nothing in the way like that where you sometimes get trust issues in other zombie books. So that's not present in this book. That trust is already there from the start, so that was really nice to read about as well. And then after Married with Zombies, I went on to A Shade of Vampire by Bella Forrest. Now this was just a book I think that I'd entered a giveaway for, and it just kind of ended up in my TBR, and I never got rid of it, so I just ended up getting the book and reading it. And the best way I can describe it, while it was good, I would describe it more of something I would find in a writing site like Amita or something like that, where it's not fan fiction, but it would end up as an original fiction on a fan fiction site, and it was a very good one. I would have read it on a fan fiction site, no problem. It reminded me of a lot of other vampire-esque fictions that I've seen on those kind of sites. It's basically about a girl who ends up becoming kind of like a slave to this vampire king or this vampire prince, and it's about how he kind of starts to fall in love with her, but she wants to escape. And it was enjoyable. It was only 150 pages, so I read it pretty quickly. I don't really know if I'd read the rest, because I think there's actually loads of them. I think it kind of goes on a bit. I'm not really sure, but for the week that was in it, it was grand. I enjoyed it, and I gave it 3 stars, or 2.5, 3 stars. And I forgot to say that I gave Married with Zombies 5 stars. That was a 5-star read for me. It was so good. So after A Shade of Vampire, I went on and I started reading The Iron King by Julie Kagawa, or Kagawa. I'm not actually really sure how to say that name, so I'm sorry if I got that wrong. This is basically about a girl called Megan Chase, and she ends up discovering on her 16th birthday that she is the daughter of a Fae king, and she ends up entering this kind of Fae realm because she's looking for her brother who's after being kidnapped. And this realm that she enters, it's not like a typical magical fairy wonderland. It's really, really dark. I really didn't like the realm at all. I would not want to be there. It's a really horrible world. These are water fairies that will drown you if you get too close, goblins that will eat you, the satyrs that will rape you. It's just definitely not a world that anyone would really want to be in, unless you have some kind of powers and can protect yourself really well. It reminded me a little bit of the Fae from the Wicked Lovely series by Melissa Marr, which was a book series I enjoyed at first, but I didn't really like it afterwards. I thought the creativity behind this world was really great, and the different kind of worlds and the different courts, the different fairy courts within the whole fairy realm was really well written and did come across quite clear. You have the summer fairies, the dark fairies, and then now you have the iron fairies as well, which are really, really good. I didn't particularly feel connected to any of the characters though. I found Megan quite annoying. We have Puck, who's also called Robin, and then we also have Ash, who's kind of like the Dark Prince, who are kind of like the two male characters in this. And again, I don't really like either of them either. They're all right, but at the same time, these are fairies who are thousands and thousands of years old, and they both seem to be lusting after this 16-year-old girl. She's literally just turned 16, so she's practically still 15. And I found it a little bit creepy. I mean, I don't know, I think maybe if she'd been 18 or 19, it would have been a little bit better for me, or even 17, I don't know. I think 16 just seemed really, really young to be kind of this object of affection for these fairies who were really, really, really old, even if they only looked, 16 or 17. Yeah, so I gave it 3 stars. I did enjoy it, and I will go on and read the rest of it because I am interested in finding out what happens. So after The Iron King, I went on and I started reading Glitch by Heather Anastasiu, and I only finished that this morning. I gave it 3 stars. I found it pretty good. It really reminded me of the same society of the Delirium series, and this is because in this book the human population are kind of controlled. They all have this kind of machinery like in the back of their neck, and they kind of have all these different machine components inside them, and what it basically does, it suppresses all their emotions, like all their human traits. Basically they're kind of like blank robot cyborg, kind of like people. They don't feel like fear or love or sadness, any kind of emotion they don't feel. The only thing they can really feel is pain. And it's about this girl who starts glitching, so she starts being able to feel things, and when that happens, generally people can they can be taken by their government and they can end up being killed because of it. And she ends up kind of finding out that there's this whole resistance involved in this community that are going against the government, and she meets this guy called Adrian who helps her out, and he tells her all about this. So it definitely reminded me of Delirium and Lena and Alex a lot. So yeah, I had to kind of separate it for a while in my head, saying no, like these are 2 completely different communities. They were very, very similar. But overall, like, I did enjoy it. The only thing is that they did do something in it that was pretty interesting. That something that I would have thought would happen at the end of a book happened at the very start of it, like kind of after the first quarter of it. Something happened to Zoe, the main character, that I would have felt would have been a really good cliffhanger for the end of the book, but I could understand why it happened. There was another. The description of the book has Zoe as the main character, and then it has 2 male characters. So when 2 characters and 1 female character are mentioned, this is going to be a love triangle. However, this love triangle really didn't do it for me. I'm going to talk about the love triangle for a little bit, so you can skip ahead if you don't want to find out anything. I'm not going to really give any details, just some bits I liked and some bits I didn't like. What I would describe Zoe's relationship with Adrian, I wouldn't say it was insta-love, because obviously she doesn't really know what love is. She doesn't really understand the whole complex emotions, that you have when you're feeling love. So her trust and her connection with Adrian, I felt, was quite real. I did really like their connection. I felt it was quite genuine. And then you have Max, who is also someone who's glitching and kind of becomes close to Zoe. And I really didn't like him. And I don't know if we were supposed to like him or not, because he almost comes across quite tragic at the end of it. And I really didn't like that, because I felt he was very, very, very forceful with Zoe. He kept wanting to, take off her clothes and do things with her that she didn't want to do. He got very angry, very, I wouldn't even say protective. He was very possessive and very controlling, and I really didn't like that. So yeah, I hated him. I really hated his character because of that, and I think it probably could have been done a little bit better. So let me guys know what you're reading, if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned, and what you think about it. So I will see you guys again during the week. So bye.